The insurance man said no. The director said cut it, but Michael's fingers were already wrapped around the bass. What happened next rewrote the rulebook. 3 hours before the taping, the Motown executive stood in the studio hallway with a clipboard and a frown that could stop a freight train. His name was fictional, his concern was real, and his words landed like a gavel. If that kid drops the stand on live TV, our insurance won't cover a dime. The stage manager nodded. The lighting director made a note, and somewhere in the back of the room, young Michael Jackson kept his eyes on the chrome stand at center stage, wondering if anyone noticed he'd already figured out its balance point. The Jackson 5 had 3 network appearances lined up that month, and Motown's production protocol was carved in stone. Fixed microphone stands, assigned marks on the floor, no improvisation. The stands weighed 18 pounds each. Solid steel base, adjustable chrome column, foam windscreen that smelled faintly of cleaning solution and yesterday's broadcast. For Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, and Marlon, the stand was an anchor point, a spot to hit and hold. For Michael, it was something else entirely, but no one had seen that yet. But here's the part nobody saw coming. During the afternoon tech rehearsal, the director called for a lighting check. The brothers stepped into their marks, and Michael's hand drifted to the stand's neck, fingers curling around the cool metal. He tilted it just 5 degrees, testing the weight distribution. The stand didn't fall. It hovered, suspended in that narrow margin between vertical and disaster, and when Michael released it, the chrome column swung back to center with a whisper of moving parts. A camera operator glanced up. A stagehand paused mid-coil with a cable in his hands. Michael smiled, soft and private, and stepped back into position as if nothing had happened. The production assistant didn't miss it. She walked straight to the executive's office and said, "He's going to do something with that stand tonight." The executive asked what she meant. She said, "I don't know, but you should watch him." The executive made another note on his clipboard, and the word liability got underlined twice. By 6 p.m., the studio audience was filing in, 300 people in tiered seats, press photographers in the pit, camera operators checking focus marks. Backstage, the Jackson brothers gathered in a narrow hallway lined with costume racks and mirror bulbs. Jackie adjusted his collar. Tito ran through a chord progression in his head. Jermaine checked his reflection. Marlon stretched his calves. And Michael stood alone near the props table, staring at a spare microphone stand leaning against the wall, turning over a problem no one else knew existed. Wait, notice what just changed in the room. The floor director's voice crackled through the backstage monitor. 5 minutes to places, stand by on music cue. The brothers moved toward the stage entrance, but Michael lingered, one hand resting on the spare stand's base. He lifted it 6 inches off the ground, felt the pivot point, set it down, lifted it again, this time with a different grip, palm under the base, fingers spread wide. The weight shifted from impossible to manageable, and something clicked in his mind, a sequence of movements that hadn't existed 5 seconds ago. Tito glanced back. "You coming?" Michael nodded, leaving the spare stand behind, but his hands were still rehearsing the motion in the air, muscle memory forming in real time. The stage lights came up hot and white. The audience applause rolled like distant thunder. The Jackson 5 hit their marks, and there it was. Michael's microphone stand, center stage, chrome gleaming under the floods, base bolted to a 20-pound sandbag per Motown safety protocol. The director's voice in the control booth, "Camera 2. Tighten on Michael. Camera 3 wide on the group. Stand by for playback." The music director counted them in, and the opening bars filled the studio, tight and bright and unstoppable. 1 second, don't skip this moment. 45 seconds into the song, Michael stepped away from his mark. Not far, 18 inches, maybe 2 feet, but enough that the camera operator on 2 had to reframe fast. Michael's right hand reached for the stand, and the stage manager in the wings tensed, ready to call a stop if the sandbag shifted. But Michael didn't pull. He placed his palm on the chrome column, just below the mic clip, and let the stand lean into his hand, weight transferring smooth and controlled. The column tilted 30 degrees, held there for a beat, then swung back upright as Michael released it, his body already spinning away into the next move. The audience gasped, a small sound, curiosity mixed with surprise. The executive in the control booth leaned forward. The insurance man, watching from the back row, felt his chest tighten. And Michael, facing the camera now, grinned like he'd just told a joke only he understood. Camera 3 caught the wide shot. 4 brothers dancing in tight formation, and one small figure at center stage making a stationary piece of equipment look like it had learned to breathe. What you're about to see wasn't in the script. 90 seconds in, Michael came back to the stand. This time he gripped the base with his left hand, fingers wrapping around the cold steel, and lifted. The sandbag stayed on the floor. The stand came free, 18 pounds of chrome and metal rising as if it weighed nothing. He swung it in a low arc, 6 inches off the stage, the microphone tracing a perfect circle in the air, then set it down exactly on its original mark, not a wobble, not a scrape. The floor director forgot to breathe. The lighting tech whispered, "How's he doing that?" And Jackie, mid-step in the choreography, shot a look at Jermaine that said, "Did we rehearse this?" They hadn't. Michael's brothers had seen him mess around with the spare stand during sound checks, but this was different. This was live, on camera, with 20 million people watching through TV screens across the country, and every move Michael made looked effortless, inevitable, like the stand had been waiting its whole mechanical life for someone to figure out what it was really for. At 2 minutes 15 seconds, Michael executed the sequence that would show up in every highlight reel for the next 50 years. He grabbed the stand mid-spin, pulled it across his body, let it tilt past 45 degrees, caught it with his opposite hand, and froze. Stand suspended in the air, Michael's body a counterbalance, the physics working out to the decimal point. He held it there for 3 beats, 4 beats, the audience silent now, caught in the tension of that impossible angle, and then he released it, the stand snapping upright, the microphone settling back into place like it had never moved. Look closely. This is where everything shifted. Backstage, the stage manager grabbed his headset mic and said, "Do we stop this?" The director, eyes locked on the monitor, said, "Are you insane? Keep rolling." The executive stood up from his chair, clipboard forgotten, and the insurance man in the back row realized he was watching the exact moment his policy terms became obsolete. Because Michael wasn't improvising, he was inventing. Every move had purpose. The way he gripped the bass distributed the weight across his palm, eliminating strain. The angles he chose kept the center of gravity inside a safe zone. No wild swings, no risk of the stand flying into the front row. Even the timing, those moments when he let the chrome column tilt past what looked like the point of no return, those were calculated, the product of 100 small experiments during sound checks and late-night practices when no one was watching. The brothers had tried to copy him during rehearsals. Jackie got the stand 2 inches off the ground before his wrist started shaking. Tito managed a small tilt but couldn't control the swing back. Jermaine gave up after 5 seconds, laughing and saying, "Man, that thing's got a mind of its own." Marlon came closest, lifting the stand and holding it for a beat, but when he tried to spin it, the bass clipped his shin and he had to set it down fast. Michael had watched each attempt, quiet and patient, and when they asked him how he did it, he said, You gotta feel where it wants to go, then go there first. Which explained nothing and everything. Remember this. It wasn't the move, it was the choice. The song hit its final chorus and Michael placed both hands on the stand, one on the bass, one on the column, and lifted it high, chrome, flashing under the lights, then brought it down in a smooth arc, setting it onto the stage with a metallic whisper that the boom mic barely caught. He stepped back, hit his final mark, and the music cut to applause. The audience on its feet, the brothers, grinning and breathless, and Michael standing center stage, one hand resting lightly on the stand that wasn't supposed to move. In the control booth, the director turned to the executive and said, "You're going to let him keep doing that, right?" The executive looked at his clipboard, at the underlined word liability, and then at the monitor where Michael was taking a bow, the chrome stand gleaming behind him like a silent partner. He crossed out liability and wrote signature move. The insurance man walked out without a word, and somewhere in America, 20 million viewers leaned back from their TV screens, wondering what they'd just seen, knowing they'd never forget it. 3 weeks later, the Jackson 5 appeared on another network special. The production team had switched to lighter stands, 14 pounds instead of 18, and removed the sandbags entirely. Michael noticed immediately, tested the new balance during sound check, and adjusted his grip by half an inch. When the cameras rolled, he executed a move he'd been working on in private, a full 360 spin, the stand rotating in his hand like a baton, the microphone never once dipping below horizontal. A stagehand backstage whispered to the lighting director, "Think he practices this stuff?" The lighting director, watching Michael nail the landing, said, "I think he's been practicing his whole life." And in that moment, the chrome stand stopped being a piece of equipment. It became an extension, a voice, a way for a young artist to say, "I see the rules, I respect the physics, and I'm going to show you something you didn't know was possible." That stand never fell. Not once. Not in rehearsal, not on live TV, not during the 500 performances that followed. Because Michael had made a choice, not to fight the weight, but to understand it. Not to ignore the risk, but to master it. And in doing so, he turned a Motown executive's biggest fear into the moment everyone remembered. One hand, one pivot, and suddenly the rulebook didn't matter anymore.